In the 1930s, as Adolf Hitler's shadow loomed large over Germany, a dark and dangerous force emerged, the Hitler Youth. This organization, designed to shape a new generation of loyal Nazis, sought to indoctrinate the youth from a very early age. The Nazis understood that if they could control the minds of the children, they could secure their power and dominate future generations. The creation of the Hitler Youth was not just about forming a youth group. It was about creating soldiers of ideology, individuals who would serve the Nazi regime's goals and carry forward its dangerous ideology of racial purity and militarism. Germany, in the aftermath of World War I, was a country broken by the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. The nation was economically devastated and politically unstable, creating fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root. In this climate of resentment and frustration, Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party emerged as a force promising to restore Germany to greatness. Hitler recognized the immense potential of the youth in shaping the future of the nation, and thus the Hitler Youth was born. The origins of the Hitler Youth go back to the early 1920s, when the Nazi Party created the Jugendbund, or Youth League, in 1922. This was a precursor to the full-fledged organization that would emerge in 1926 under Kurt Gruber. Its primary mission was clear: to mold German youth into future supporters and enforcers of Nazi ideology, creating an army of loyal followers who would carry out the objectives of the Nazi regime. By 1931, Baldur von Schirach was appointed as the Reich youth leader, and he played a pivotal role in transforming the Hitler Youth into a highly structured and disciplined organization. Von Schirach's vision was to build an army of young people who were swift as a greyhound, tough as leather, and hard as steel. Under his leadership, the Hitler Youth became an instrument of militarization, physical training, and intense loyalty to Adolf Hitler. The indoctrination process was designed to shape the youth not only into soldiers for the military but into soldiers of Nazi ideology. The structure of the Hitler Youth was designed to ensure that Nazi ideology permeated every stage of a child's life. The organization was divided into age groups to systematically instill Nazi values at an early age. Young boys between the ages of 10 and 14 were enrolled in the Deutsches Jungvolk, or German young people, where they were introduced to the ideals of the Nazi Party through activities such as hiking sports and history lessons that were all taught from a Nazi perspective. This stage was focused on building physical strength, loyalty to the Führer, and a sense of duty to the nation. As boys grew older, they transitioned into the Hitlerjugend, or Hitler Youth, at the age of 14. This stage marked a more intense commitment to Nazi ideology and included regular physical drills, military training, and the teaching of military skills such as map reading, first aid, and firearms handling. The core of their education remained centered on racial purity, with lessons reinforcing the idea that the Aryan race was superior and that young Germans were destined to defend the future of the Third Reich. The girls, on the other hand, were placed in the Bund Deutscher Mädel BDM League of German girls, which had two divisions, one for girls aged 10 to 14 and another for those aged 14 to 21. The focus for girls was on preparing them for their roles as mothers and wives, who would raise the next generation of Nazi soldiers. Although the BDM emphasized domestic duties like cooking, sewing, and childcare, it also included physical fitness programs to ensure that girls were healthy and strong enough to bear children who would become future soldiers. The Nazis sought to create an idealized vision of a woman's role in society, one that revolved around traditional family values and the raising of Aryan children. While boys were trained for military service, girls were encouraged to marry Aryan men and produce many children to ensure the future of the Nazi race. This division of roles reinforced the Nazi vision of a highly organized society in which every person had a clearly defined role in service of the state. The Hitler Youth helped cement these roles, ensuring that the values of loyalty, duty, and racial purity were ingrained in every young German. The growth of the Hitler Youth was fueled by a combination of propaganda, peer pressure, and later legislation. In the early days, the Hitler Youth was portrayed as an exciting and patriotic organization where young people could find a sense of belonging. Hiking trips, sports competitions, and group activities were depicted as adventurous and rewarding. Nazi propaganda painted the Hitler Youth as the most noble and patriotic way for young people to serve their nation and contribute to the restoration of Germany's greatness. The sense of camaraderie and national pride was undeniably appealing, especially in the context of a country still struggling to recover from the aftermath of World War I. Many young people joined the Hitler Youth with the belief that they were playing a part in Germany's revival. They felt empowered by being part of something larger than themselves, a movement that promised to restore Germany to its former glory. As the organization expanded, peer pressure became a powerful tool for recruitment. Young people who resisted joining the Hitler Youth were often socially ostracized. Classmates, teachers and friends pressured youths to join, and refusal to do so often led to social isolation. In fact, teachers were instructed to encourage or even require their students to join the organization. The growing societal expectation made membership almost mandatory. By 1936, the Hitler Youth Law made it a legal requirement for all German youths to join, further solidifying the organization's place as a central institution in Nazi Germany. At this point, membership in the Hitler Youth was no longer just a personal choice. It was a societal expectation. Refusing to join was seen as unpatriotic and antisocial. The organization's reach expanded rapidly, and millions of German youths were soon enlisted in its ranks. Through this combination of peer pressure and state-mandated membership, the Hitler Youth became one of the most powerful tools for indoctrination within Nazi Germany. As World War II progressed, the role of the Hitler Youth evolved. With the Nazi regime facing increasing pressure on multiple fronts, the need for young soldiers became more urgent. By 1944, as the war reached its devastating climax, the Nazis began conscripting members of the Hitler Youth to fight on the front lines. These young soldiers, some as young as 16, were thrust into the brutal realities of war. They were poorly equipped, inadequately trained, and sent to battle without a full understanding of what they were fighting for. The most tragic example of this was during the Battle of Berlin in 1945, when young members of the Hitler Youth were ordered to defend the city against the Soviet Red Army. Armed with little more than rifles and homemade explosives, these young recruits fought valiantly, but were quickly overwhelmed by the superior Soviet forces. Many of them were killed in the streets, victims of a desperate regime willing to sacrifice its youth to maintain a semblance of control. The involvement of the Hitler Youth in combat is a stark reminder of how the Nazi regime exploited its youth. These young people had been indoctrinated from an early age to believe in the glory of the Reich and their duty to defend it. They fought not just for survival, but for an ideology that had been ingrained in them for years. The fact that so many of these young soldiers were sent to their deaths in a war they were unprepared for underscores the tragic cost of the Nazi regime's manipulation of youth. Despite the overwhelming power of the Hitler Youth and its extensive reach, there were those who resisted the Nazi regime. Groups like the White Rose, Edelweiss Pirates, and Swing Kids rejected the indoctrination of the Hitler Youth. These groups, though small, were incredibly courageous in their defiance of the regime. The White Rose, led by students Hans and Sophie Scholl, distributed leaflets condemning the atrocities committed by the Nazis. They risked everything to speak out against the regime, knowing that it could cost them their lives. In 1943, their resistance was uncovered and they were executed by the Nazis. The Edelweiss Pirates, a group of working-class youth, resisted by engaging in acts of sabotage and helping prisoners escape. These young rebels fought back against the Nazi regime's control, and though many were caught and punished, their legacy remains a symbol of defiance against oppression. In the aftermath of World War II, the Allies moved quickly to dismantle the Hitler Youth, recognizing its role in indoctrinating millions of German youth into Nazi ideology. The Allies issued Control Council Law No. 10, which declared the Hitler Youth illegal. The process of denazification sought to remove Nazi influence from every aspect of German life, and former members of the Hitler Youth were sent to re-education programs to help them understand the horrors of the regime they had supported. The trauma caused by the Hitler Youth's indoctrination lingered for many years. For some, the guilt and shame of their past involvement remained, while others struggled to reconcile their youthful devotion to the Nazi regime with the harsh reality of its crimes. The process of reintegrating these former members into a democratic society was a slow and difficult one, but it marked the beginning of Germany's recovery and the rebuilding of a nation committed to peace and democracy. After the war, the Allies worked to dismantle the Hitler Youth and remove its influence from German society. Control Council Law No. 10 declared the Hitler Youth illegal, beginning the process of denazification. Former members were sent to re-education programs, but many struggled to shed the Nazi ideology they had been raised with. The process was slow, and some former members continued to hold on to Nazi beliefs, creating a lingering division in post-war Germany. The psychological impact of the Hitler Youth was profound. Many youths had joined out of a sense of duty to their country, but they were manipulated into supporting an ideology of hate. The trauma they endured, especially those sent to die in the war, left emotional scars. For many, reconciling their loyalty to Hitler with the atrocities committed by the regime was a lifelong struggle. Post-war Germany faced the challenge of rebuilding its society, and educating the youth became a critical part of that process. The focus shifted from military service and loyalty to Hitler to democratic values, peace, and equality. The process of re-educating former members of the Hitler Youth was difficult, but it was essential for preventing the return of extremist ideologies in a new democratic Germany. The legacy of the Hitler Youth remains a significant chapter in Germany's history. It serves as a reminder of the dangers of manipulation, indoctrination, and the power of propaganda. Today, Germany teaches young people the importance of democracy, tolerance, and critical thinking, ensuring that the lessons of the Nazi era are not forgotten. The story of the Hitler Youth is a warning about the dangers of extremism and the need to protect future generations from similar ideologies. The influence of the Hitler Youth extended beyond Germany's borders, with Nazi Germany seeking to export its ideology to countries like Italy, Norway, and even the United States. Fascist youth groups in these countries mirrored the structure of the Hitler Youth, and the Nazis worked to form international alliances to promote their vision of fascism. The story of the Hitler Youth is an important lesson for the world. It underscores the importance of protecting youth from extremist ideologies and the dangers of propaganda. The global effort to prevent the spread of fascism after World War II through denazification and education continues to shape our understanding of how to resist the rise of totalitarian regimes.